screech. The sharp cry of an eagle reverberated through the heavens and earth. The ear-piercing sound waves turned into tangible forces that swept across, carving numerous deep marks on the ground. A terrifying pressure enveloped the area, and under this pressure, even the faces of some academy heads, not to mention the ordinary students, began to shift in alarm. Is that the true form of the ancient sky dragon eagle? Some of the academy heads looked at the enormous creature with solemn expressions and asked in surprise. It really is its true form, not some so-called spirit soul power. But why is the ancient sky dragon eagle hidden inside Xuan's body? With his strength, how could he possibly suppress the ancient sky dragon eagle? One of the academy heads murmured with confusion. The ancient sky dragon eagle was ranked 8th on the spirit beast ranking. Such a super spirit beast, once it reaches maturity, could have strength comparable to that of a supreme. Yet, Xuan's strength, even now, could barely open up the supreme sea. Strictly speaking, he had not truly entered the supreme stage, so it was impossible for him to fully suppress an ancient sky dragon eagle and make it serve him. The academy heads exchanged looks, clearly puzzled by this. The strength of this ancient sky dragon eagle has likely reached the level of a 4th grade supreme. The battle from here on, I'm afraid, is no longer necessary. One of the academy heads shook his head and said with helplessness, a 4th grade supreme could already become a dean in an ordinary spirit academy, and even in the 5 great academies, they would be among the most powerful elders. Such strength far exceeded the level that students could achieve. Dean Tiansheng, your academy seems to be cheating a little, don't you think? The ancient sky dragon eagle is not Xuan's own beast. Using an external power is not within the competition rules. In the sky, the headmaster of Taitsong Academy looked darkly at the massive form of the eagle and coldly said. Upon hearing this, Dean Tiansheng merely smiled lightly and said, Headmaster Taitsong, you're mistaken. The ancient sky dragon eagle has nothing to do with our sacred spirit academy. This is all the work of Xuan himself. Furthermore, he and the ancient sky dragon eagle share a symbiotic bond. The power he draws from it comes at a tremendous cost. Symbiotic bond. The 3 other academy heads were slightly taken aback. The so-called symbiotic bond was an extremely dangerous method, where the ancient sky dragon eagle existed within the human body, but constantly attempted to seize the host's consciousness, replacing it. At the same time, the host sought to refine it and claim its power as their own. It was almost a gamble, with one's life at stake. The losing side would pay a tragic and often irreversible price. Generally speaking, it was rare for both humans and powerful spirit beasts to choose this method. Humans didn't want to harbor such a dangerous bomb inside their bodies, and for spirit beasts, the high cost of such a risk meant they too were unwilling to enter this perilous situation. Therefore, this symbiotic bond was actually quite rare. The ancient sky dragon eagle chose Xuan's body, attempting to seize it, while Xuan desired the power of the eagle. That's why they formed a symbiotic bond. So, for Xuan, this power isn't borrowed out of thin air, nor is it against the rules. Dean Tiansheng smiled faintly. The 3 other academy heads fell silent. The ancient sky dragon eagle might still be tolerable, as Xuan's strength was weak, and with the eagle's power, it was possible to defeat him. However, Xuan himself was decisively ruthless, and given the depth of his schemes, he must have prepared for this, or else he wouldn't have dared take such a risky step. Headmaster Taitsong's expression remained dark, but in the end, he had nothing more to say. Though Xuan's power had come through a shortcut, he had paid the price of gambling with his life. Headmaster Taitsong slightly raised his head and gazed at the figure of the young man in midair. He sighed inwardly. Mu Chen's performance had been flawless, but no one had expected that Xuan still had such a deep trump card hidden. This guy, so he really has a true ancient sky dragon eagle within him. When Xingxian gritted her silver teeth and gazed at the ancient giant eagle. Finally, she smiled bitterly and said, It seems we underestimated Xuan after all. Luo Li's jade-like hand couldn't help but clench tightly. She looked at Mu Chen's figure, his youthful face as calm as water, showing no sign of emotion. But one could imagine that the latter's heart was likely shaken as well. You should step back for now, Luo Li said softly. Mu Chen would never give up, so I'll accompany him to the very end. Luo Li smiled gently, yet there was an unshakable determination in her smile. The strength of the ancient sky dragon eagle is probably on par with a 4th grade supreme. Even if you and Mu Chen teamed up, there's no way you could win. When Qing Xian said anxiously, "Forget it, it's just a contest." Everyone can see that Ji Xian is clearly cheating. This power isn't something he cultivated himself. If it were truly based on individual strength, he's already lost to Mu Chen. Luo Li shook her head lightly and smiled. "Do you think Mu Chen will back down?" When Qing Xian was silent, she knew the enmity between Mu Chen and Ji Xian. This guy, usually so gentle, was actually incredibly stubborn at his core. Even though he knew he had no chance of defeating Ji Xian right now, she was sure he would never willingly admit defeat while conscious. Such an idiot, when Qing Xian sighed. But she had to admit, when this guy became stubborn, it was quite admirable. "Then let's do this together." When Qing Xian gritted her teeth. After some recovery earlier, she had regained much of her combat strength. Luo Li looked at her with a slightly surprised expression. Clearly, when Qing Xian didn't have to participate in this battle with such low odds of winning. When Qing Xian blushed under Luo Li's gaze and quickly said, "That guy did help me earlier. I'm not the type to forget a kindness." Luo Li smiled, her gaze carrying a hint of meaning, but she didn't say more, simply nodding lightly. At this moment, the world around them was still, with hardly any uproar. Countless students stood with mouths agape, clearly stunned by the sight of the ancient sky dragon eagle. The pressure it radiated exceeded their limits, and they understood that this level of power was beyond what they, as students, could reach, at least not now. The Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was equally silent, with countless faces pale. The joy from earlier had completely vanished. Under the gaze of countless stunned eyes, Ji Xian lazily turned his neck, hearing the cracking sound of his bones. He lifted his cold, sinister face and stared at Mu Chen, smirking. "Do you feel hopeless?" Mu Chen remained expressionless, his palms slowly clenching into fists. Behind Ji Xian, the ancient sky dragon eagle raised its hawk-like eyes, filled with malice, and glanced indifferently at Mu Chen. Its power hadn't even bothered to take note of him, so it turned its gaze back to Ji Xian. A cold voice, audible only to Ji Xian, spoke. "Did this guy force you to summon me, Ji Xian? You should know, the more you use my power, the more I'll erode you." Ji Xian smiled faintly and replied, "Then I hope you can truly possess my body before I surpass you. But before that, we rise together or we fall together. So let's get rid of this guy first." "As you wish." The ancient sky dragon eagle's vicious eyes sparkled with a cold light. With a sinister laugh, its wings flapped, and its massive form turned into a brilliant stream of light, rushing directly into Ji Xian's body. Sizzle! The wings behind Ji Xian expanded at an astonishing speed. In just a few breaths, they stretched to 100 meters or so. His hands gradually became sharp, with dark purple nails resembling daggers. A terrifying spiritual energy storm howled around him, tearing through the air. The fluctuations of spiritual energy had reached the level of a supreme stage. Feeling the immense power within his body, a look of intoxication crossed Ji Xian's face. His pupils turned into sharp hawk-like eyes. He then looked up, gave Mu Chen a slight smile, and with a flap of his wings, a dark purple spiritual energy storm swept toward Mu Chen with overwhelming force. Mu Chen's expression turned grave. He clenched his palm, and the great Xun'er demon pillar shot up into the sky, crashing down. Boom! The spiritual energy storm collided with the great Xun'er demon pillar, causing the pillar to shake violently, and it was sent flying back. When Mu Chen tried to strike again, he was hit by the immense backlash, causing his arms to ache and his palms to split open, blood flowing. "Now, in my eyes, you are nothing more than an ant." Ji Xian sneered, and as his laughter faded, a sharp sound of wind piercing through the air suddenly came from behind him. However, he didn't even look back. With a swift movement, he slapped his palm backward. The space beneath his hand distorted, and purple spiritual energy surged out like a giant purple serpent, sweeping across. Boom! A muffled sound echoed as two graceful figures were forcefully knocked back. It was Luo Li and Qing Xian, who had tried to assist Mu Chen. But judging by the current situation, it was clear they were no match for Xuan. Swish. Xuan flapped his wings, and countless afterimages appeared. Before Mu Chun could react, a sharp, unmatched gust of wind from his palm landed squarely on Mu Chen's shoulder. Puff! Mu Chen's body was sent flying, and a mouthful of fresh blood spurted out. Your speed is really pitifully slow, Xuan taunted. Just as Mu Chun steadied himself, a sinister voice reached his ears from behind. Immediately after, another gust of wind from Xuan's palm slammed into him. Boom! Mu Chen's body crashed heavily into the ground. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looking rather disheveled. Despite having clearly fallen into an inferior position, his eyes remained cold and murderous, showing no signs of fear or retreat. Mu Gu, give it up. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy area, some people gazed at the disheveled figure, feeling a slight ache in their hearts. A few of the girls even had red eyes. Back when Mu Chun was at the academy, he always exuded confidence, with his handsome face and radiant smile. They had never seen him in such a sorry state. The other students from different spiritual academies didn't speak, but a hint of admiration could be seen in their eyes. After all, regardless of the outcome, Mu Chen's tenacity and persistence were worthy of respect. Mu Chen's body was buried in a pile of rocks. He looked particularly pitiful at this moment. His hand trembled slightly as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a ferocious expression slowly emerged in his eyes. Even if he failed today, he would drag Xuan down with him. Let's see who is more ruthless. Mu Chun muttered with a cruel smile, struggling to stand up from the rubble. Just as he was about to make his next move, his body suddenly stiffened. At that moment, a slightly familiar, lazy voice suddenly rang out in his mind. TSK, little Mu Chun, you're really useless. How could you let that scruffy bird beat you so badly? The voice, familiar to him, left Mu Chun stunned for a moment. He then rubbed his ears in disbelief. Because the voice was unmistakably from the Nine Nether, who had been in the process of evolving. The sudden lazy voice caused Mu Chen's expression to freeze. After a moment, he finally came to his senses, but still in disbelief, he muttered, Ew, Nine Nether? You've awoken. However, his question received no response, causing his heart to chill instantly. Could it be that he was just hearing things? Looks like you really missed me. A teasing and playful laugh echoed in his mind once again. Mu Chen froze, rolling his eyes helplessly. But eventually, he let out a sigh of relief. This guy, who had been asleep for a year or two, had finally awoken. Finally, you're awake, Mu Chen muttered to himself. Had no choice. Your life was about to be forfeit. I didn't want to wake up just to die with you after my evolution, Nine Nether chuckled. Mu Chen's mouth twitched. His relationship with Nine Nether was complex. They had established a bloodline bond, which made them extremely close. Even though Nine Nether had mostly been asleep over the years, their connection had kept them intimately linked. It seems you're in quite a bit of trouble, Nine Nether smiled lightly. Though their communication was in the form of thought, Mu Chun could still sense a flash of an image in his mind. It was of a black, shattered egg, and a girl in black clothing sitting atop it. Her long, slender legs gently swayed as she tore a piece of the eggshell and placed it in her small, rosy mouth, nibbling it with her silver teeth. Her wild beauty was evident as she savored it with an expression full of intoxication. It's an ancient sky dragon eagle. Its strength should have reached the 4th grade supreme level. Mu Chen nodded, then asked softly, Can you handle it? Nine Nether, resting her jade hand on her cheek, lazily responded, A scruffy bird that can't even complete its metamorphosis. It's only reached the supreme stage because it's lived for so long. What's your current level of strength? Mu Chen asked cautiously. Well, it seems I'm at the 4th grade supreme, Jiuyu replied with a smile. 4th grade supreme? Mu Chen gasped, somewhat shocked. After all those years of cultivation, the ancient sky dragon eagle had only reached that level. Jiuyu had only been in slumber for less than 2 years, and had surged in power to this extent. He clearly remembered that, before her evolution, Jiuyu's strength was only on par with his own. I'm the most talented and pure-blooded member of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan in 1,000 years. You shouldn't compare me to that mixed-breed bird, Jiuyu said lazily, not feeling any surprise at her power increase. instead wearing a look of entitlement. Chen was speechless. Her words would likely cause many self-proclaimed geniuses to spit blood in shock. That guy is also at the 4th grade. Can you handle him? Chen inquired. In a matchup of the same level, a divine beast crushes a spirit beast, Jiuyu replied nonchalantly. Impressive. Chen exclaimed sincerely. I'll lend you my power temporarily, but how much you can handle depends on your own abilities, Jiuyu said, chewing her last piece of eggshell and swallowing it. She then lightly clapped her hands, forming seals with her fingers. Suddenly, a sea of purple flames erupted, accompanied by an overwhelming fluctuation of spiritual energy. On the collapsing battle stage, Chen stood motionless, his expression stiffened from the connection he was making with Jiuyu. It seems you've already started to give up. In midair, Xian tilted his head slightly, looking at the disheveled Chen with a faint smile. Since that's the case, let me show you what true despair feels like. The confidence you speak of will cease to exist from this moment on. As his words fell, Xian's eyes turned to a cruel glare. He stepped forward, his ghostly figure appearing right before Chen. He let out a soft laugh, and his sharp fingertips glimmered with purple light, tearing through space itself as he aimed for Chen's heart. With a vicious thrust, outside the battle stage, countless students averted their gaze in discomfort. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, many students turned pale. It's over. Xian laughed maniacally, the purple light on his fingers glowing ever more brilliantly. The gust of wind he generated was capable of shredding any obstruction. The wind sliced through the air like lightning before finally crashing into Chen's chest. Sizzle. A faint sound punctuated the tense atmosphere, causing the eyes of those who were focused on the battle stage to suddenly widen in shock. Xian's savage expression dramatically changed as he raised his head in disbelief. He saw that Chen had extended 2 fingers, gently pinching together, perfectly stopping his fierce attack. Despite looking fragile, Chen's grip prevented Xian's strike from advancing even an inch. How is that possible? Shocked gasps erupted from the crowd. Xian's heart raced as he stared at the disheveled youth before him, who slowly looked up. His dark eyes seemed to be swirling with violet flames. Your moment of pride ends here. A faint smirk appeared on the youth's lips, his voice raspy. In the next instant, he unleashed a fierce kick, his legs slicing through the air with such speed that even Xian couldn't react in time before it landed brutally on his chest. Bang! A deep sound reverberated, and Xian's body shot back like a cannonball, leaving a trail of destruction across the ground, pulverizing massive boulders along the way. The arena fell into a stunned silence. Countless spectators gaped, mesmerized by the scene. Even Luo Li and Wenqing Xian, who were about to intervene, froze in shock, staring at Xian's sudden and embarrassing retreat. The abrupt turn of events left them momentarily dumbfounded. Outside the stage, Lingxi narrowed her beautiful eyes, observing Chen with a hint of surprise crossing her face, barely sensing something extraordinary. Uffed. Xian regained his footing, coughing up blood. His gaze, still somewhat dazed, turned to Chen. Chen raised his head and coldly stared at Xian, whose eyes were bloodshot, but he paid him no attention. Slowly, he extended both hands, and then, everyone saw a massive purple flame pillar suddenly burst from his body, shooting straight up into the sky. The intense heat spread across the land, and the ground beneath Chen's feet began to melt. The purple flames were so domineering they were beyond description. Furthermore, as the purple pillar surged, everyone could feel the terrifying spiritual energy emanating from Chen's body, growing more and more fearsome. In just a few breaths, his power had reached the level of a supreme. Countless people were once again stunned. High above, the deans of the spiritual academies had their expressions shaken, their faces becoming serious. They could sense that Chen's spiritual energy was likely already on par with a second-grade supreme. Compared to Xian, whose strength was barely at the first-grade supreme level, Chen was overwhelmingly stronger. This Chen actually has hidden trump cards too. Some of the deans exchanged wry smiles. Was this truly one of the top students from the 5 grade academies? He was incredibly powerful. Even they felt a sense of threat from him. The deans of the 5 grade academies were equally stunned. Tai Tsong, The academy head of the Great Song Academy stared at the scene, but quickly regained his composure. A hint of joy appeared on his usually cold face. Meanwhile, the normally smiling Dean Tiansheng's expression darkened. As the purple flames swept through the air, a pair of massive purple wings slowly unfolded behind Mu Chen. His originally black eyes turned completely purple, and faintly, a clear, melodious sound seemed to echo across the sky and earth. So this is the power of a supreme. Mu Chen slowly clenched his hand, feeling the terrifying power surging within him. He couldn't help but become intoxicated by it. At this moment, he felt as though he could destroy the entire land with a single movement. This power was definitely not something he could have compared to during the Divine Soul Tribulation. You can actually bear this much power? It seems your physical body is now incredibly strong, came the surprised voice of the Nine Nether in Mu Chen's mind. She had originally thought Mu Chen's limit was reaching the first grade supreme, but she never expected him to be able to endure the second grade supreme level. I haven't been idle these past 2 years, Mu Chen smiled. You've definitely become much stronger, Nine Nether admitted, not denying it. Compared to before, Mu Chen was now far more powerful. At least now, he was able to keep up with her, unlike before when he was far out of reach. Mu Chen gave a soft laugh and then slowly lifted his head. His purple flame-filled eyes coldly locked onto the pale-faced Xuan. He then stamped his foot, and the purple flames erupted. His figure vanished into thin air. As his figure disappeared, his indifferent voice swept out with the purple flames. This battle can end now. Xuan's pupils contracted as his figure violently retreated. Swoosh! A hand, engulfed in purple flames, pierced through space, as if reaching out from the void, and grabbed his throat. The gap in strength was unmistakable. When Mu Chen's hand, like an eagle's talon, gripped Xuan's throat, it happened so quickly that many couldn't even react. They were still focused on the moment Mu Chen's figure vanished, and then their eyes widened as they saw the terrifying scene unfold before them. Mu Chen stood there, his hand gripping Xuan's throat, lifting him off the ground. The once unstoppable Xuan now seemed as helpless as a defenseless infant in his grip, looking utterly weak and pathetic. The entire arena fell silent. No one dared make a sound because the scene was so shocking that they feared disturbing it. Who would have thought the situation would suddenly reverse? Xuan, who had just thoroughly suppressed Mu Chen and left him no room to fight back, was now being crushed in return after only a few minutes of smug victory. Mu Chen's counterattack was swift and decisive. What terrified the crowd even more was the fact that Mu Chen's strength had reached an extremely frightening level, far surpassing Xuan, even with the power of the ancient sky dragon eagle. Under the countless horrified gazes, Xuan's entire face turned bright red. He struggled frantically, his eyes filled with intense humiliation and viciousness. The position he was in almost made his stomach burst from anger. Over the years, he had been invincible, surpassing every peer and basking in countless adoring looks. He was used to stepping on his opponents one by one, never once imagining that one day he would be reduced to such a humiliating state. This was simply unacceptable for Xuan, who prided himself on his exceptional arrogance. To him, this was almost more torturous than being killed. "I will tear you to pieces," Xuan roared, releasing an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy that swept through the air like a storm, resembling an enraged dragon. He aimed it directly at Mu Chen. However, in the face of this astonishing attack, Mu Chen remained indifferent. With a casual flick of his fingers, a sea of purple flames surged forth. The vast spiritual energy, upon contact, was instantly reduced to nothingness. Swish! Xuan's razor-sharp fingers drew a vicious arc, targeting Mu Chen's eyes. Boom! But before his attack could land, Mu Chen's palm wind slammed heavily into his chest. There was a deep, muffled sound, and Xuan's chest seemed to cave in slightly. Blood sprayed out violently, and his body was sent tumbling backward in a disarrayed flight. Bang! Even before his body fully descended, Mu Chen's phantom-like figure reappeared in front of him. His youthful face appeared particularly cold as he threw another heavy punch. Violet flames swirled around his fist, and the intense heat twisted the space around them. Mu Chen's fist struck Ji Xian's body mercilessly, the scorching heat ravaging him. His body instantly turned bright red, as though it was about to burst into flames. Uffed. Another mouthful of blood spurted out, and Ji Xian's body was violently thrown into the crumbling battle stage below. He lay there, blood pouring from his wounds. His once handsome face had become grotesquely twisted and terrifying. He stared at Mu Chen in the sky, his eyes filled with such deep hatred that it seemed as if they could devour him. His body trembled as he muttered, "How? How is this possible? How could he possess such powerful strength?" Victory had seemed so close. But who could have predicted such an unbelievable turn of events? This power doesn't belong to him. His body is stronger than yours and can withstand far more force. A cold voice echoed in Ji Xian's heart. Even with my help, you can barely reach the first grade supreme. But he possesses the power of the second grade supreme. Of course, you cannot contend with him. I will kill him. I will kill him. Ji Xian's eyes turned crimson. Fine, let me take control of your body. Killing him will be a piece of cake. The cold voice responded with a malicious laugh. Ji Xian gritted his teeth. Normally, with his cunning, he wouldn't have agreed to such a thing. But now, as he looked at Mu Chen in the sky, his hatred surged uncontrollably, consuming his reason. He should have been standing there, receiving the cheers of the crowd, not lying here like a dead dog. He could not afford to lose to Mu Chen. He had sworn to crush him beneath his feet. Kill him for me. Ji Xian trembled, his voice filled with venom. Haha, as you wish. The sinister voice burst into laughter. Ji Xian slowly closed his eyes. The blood flowing from his body quietly stopped, and the chaotic fluctuations of spiritual energy gradually stabilized. Then his tightly shut eyes slowly opened, but now there was no trace of the previous distortion or resentment. In its place was an extremely eerie presence. He slowly stood up, stretched his neck, and savored the unfamiliar yet familiar sensation in his body. A grin spread across his face as he said, "Finally, I can control this body." He lifted his head and looked at Mu Chen with a smile. "I really have to thank you." Mu Chen furrowed his brow as he observed Ji Xian. Though Ji Xian didn't have any noticeable spiritual energy fluctuations, the look in his eyes gave Mu Chen a feeling of extreme danger. Moreover, Ji Xian felt incredibly strange now, completely different from his usual self. "You're the ancient sky dragon eagle, aren't you?" Mu Chen spoke slowly. "You're quite sharp." Ji Xian smiled faintly, not denying it. Then he chuckled. "But I promised him that I would kill you." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Chen struck out with a palm, and the purple flames surged forward, forming a massive purple flame-like hand that directly pressed down toward Ji Xian. "You're just wielding some supreme power. Compared to a true supreme, you're still far too lacking." Ji Xian saw Mu Chen's attack and smiled faintly. He swung his hand out lightly, and his palm effortlessly met the giant purple flame hand. Though the clash seemed disproportionate, the moment they made contact, the flame hand immediately shattered into pieces. The crowd around the battle stage stood motionless, their expressions blank. The ongoing battle had become so unpredictable that they could no longer follow it. Mu Chen retreated swiftly, his handsome face now filled with a serious expression. The Ji Xian before him was almost unrecognizable from the one he had faced earlier, not just in power, but in control of that power as well. It was clear that Ji Xian had truly become a supreme now. "You can't escape." The space behind Mu Chen suddenly warped, and Ji Xian's figure appeared. He smiled faintly and said, "Let me show you what a true supreme is." He curled his fingers together and pointed into the air. Dark, purple spiritual energy surged out, emanating a chilling aura. This energy was not only more refined, but also filled with an eerie sentience. In terms of quality, this energy far surpassed what Ji Xian had used before. Sword manifestation. The dark purple energy shot forward, transforming into a massive purple sword that seemed almost solid. The sword tore through space at an indescribable speed, heading straight for Mu Chen's head. Mu Chen's figure darted backward, his hands forming seals as waves of immense spiritual energy shot toward the sword. Boom, boom. However, wherever the sword passed, all obstacles were instantly destroyed. The sword's crushing force was terrifying. Mu Chen's face changed. Though the sword wasn't overwhelmingly large, its oppressive force was overwhelming, and his body could barely move under its pressure. Swish! In the next moment, all of Mu Chen's attacks were obliterated, and the massive sword appeared right before him. Just as it was about to strike down, a slender, jade-like white hand suddenly reached out from behind him, lightly flicking the sword. Purple flames engulfed the sword, reducing it to ashes. Ji Xian's pupils contracted sharply, and his cold gaze slowly shifted toward Mu Chen's back. The entire battlefield's attention shifted, and everyone stared in shock at the graceful figure behind Mu Chen. Even though they had grown somewhat numb to the battle, they couldn't help but be stunned. Who was that? Amid the astonished gazes, the figure became clearer, revealing a woman dressed in black. She had a tall, elegant figure, and her eyes held a wild, untamable gleam, exuding an aura of defiance. Her slender waist was delicate, barely fitting within a single grip, and her long, straight, and perfect jade legs made people's hearts race with desire. As the black-clad woman appeared, a clear ringing sound echoed through the heavens and earth. Then, the crowd saw that behind her, vast purple flames surged, and a massive shadow emerged. It seemed to be a gigantic black bird flapping wings as wide as the clouds, emitting a long, piercing cry that shook the world. Is that the Nine Nether Sparrow? Some of the academy heads in the sky were taken aback, murmuring, "She's actually in her true form. So Mu Chen also has a super spirit beast hidden within him. These young people are truly impressive. Does this mean Mu Chen shares a symbiotic bond with the Nine Nether Sparrow?" Nearby, Luo Li and Wen Qingxian also gazed in surprise at the unfamiliar beautiful woman. Who is she? I've never seen her before. Mu Chen wouldn't be secretly having an affair behind your back, would he? Wen Qingxian glanced at the Nine Nether Sparrow, who possessed extraordinary beauty and charm. Even she was stunned by the long, graceful legs. But what stood out most was the wild, untamed aura she gave off. Luo Li thought for a moment, and then softly said, "She should be the Nine Nether Sparrow. She shares a bloodline bond with Mu Chen, though she has been in a dormant state for many years." Bloodline bond. Wen Qingxian was startled, then muttered, "With the pride of a super spirit beast like the Nine Nether Sparrow, how could she form a bloodline bond with a human? What exactly did Mu Chen do to her?" In the sky, the Nine Nether Sparrow did not care about anyone else. Her narrow, beautiful eyes swept indifferently over Ji Xian before she spoke coldly. "I didn't want to get involved, but you, a mere feathered bird, are overstepping your bounds. Since you like meddling in other people's battles, let me accompany you." "So it's a member of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan." Ji Xian glared coldly at the Nine Nether Sparrow, sneering. "Given the lifespan of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan, you're probably still far from reaching maturity. On the Spirit Beast ranking, the ancient Sky Dragon Eagle is ranked higher than the Nine Nether Sparrow, so it didn't feel much fear at the appearance of the Nine Nether. Don't believe in those broken rankings." It seemed as though Nine Nether could read the thoughts of the ancient Sky Dragon Eagle. She pouted slightly, and then a purple flame gathered at her fingertip. Turning her head slightly, she stared mockingly at Ji Xian and slowly said, "And right now, I'm not the Nine Nether Sparrow. I am." In Nine Nether's wild eyes, the purple flame deepened, and at the same time, an indescribable, terrifying pressure suddenly surged from her body, flooding the world. In an instant, the sky and earth seemed to change color. Nine Nether Soul Sparrow. It was the pressure of a true divine beast. Boom. Nine Nether hovered in the air, a terrible aura surrounding her. The world seemed to darken, and the spiritual energy in the heavens and earth violently surged. Under that pressure, everyone's expressions changed, including the heads of the academies who had been overlooking the battle stage from above. The calmness they once had turned into seriousness, and they all stared in astonishment at the woman in black with the pair of long, perfect jade legs. To think it's the Nine Nether Soul Sparrow. This woman is truly impressive. At such a young age, she's already completed her evolution. Such talent is almost terrifying. A 4th grade Supreme Nine Nether Soul Sparrow. Impressive. The heads of the 5 great academies were all watching the scene. Dean Tiansheng of the Sacred Spirit Academy had a blank expression, but the hand resting on the armrest clenched tightly. The headmaster of Tai Tsong Academy's eyes showed shock, which quickly transformed into a hint of uncontrollable joy. He muttered to himself, "This little one, the hidden trump card, is really surprising." As the entire world seemed to shift under that pressure, the ancient sky dragon eagle, who occupied Xuan's body, stared in shock at Nine Nether, his voice raspy. You've achieved spirit transcendence." The voice of the ancient sky dragon eagle was filled with tremors and a hint of jealousy. Spirit transcendence was a realm all spirit beasts dreamed of reaching. Evolution was a unique shortcut for spirit beasts in their cultivation. Even a beast with ordinary bloodlines had the opportunity to evolve, and in this great thousand worlds, there were many beasts that once seemed ordinary but managed to break their shackles and undergo transformations again and again, ultimately becoming renowned superexistences. Although the ancient sky dragon eagle's bloodline was not ordinary, evolution was no easy feat. Even Nine Nether had failed multiple times in her attempt to evolve. Only after several failures did she manage to find a glimmer of hope and successfully undergo her transformation. The hardships she faced were known only to her. The ancient sky dragon eagle had also tried, but had yet to succeed. He had once attempted to pass through the thunder tribulation, but had failed miserably. He nearly turned to ash from the tribulation. Fortunately, he had prepared in advance, which saved his life. However, ever since, he had been too afraid to risk provoking another thunder tribulation, knowing that the power of the tribulation would increase as one's strength grew. This was something outsiders could never help with. It could only be overcome with one's own strength. So, when the ancient sky dragon eagle saw Nine Nether successfully evolve, a trace of jealousy surged within him. Nine Nether Sage, within the Nine Nether Sparrow clan, hadn't even reached maturity, yet her achievements had already far surpassed his. He could feel the pressure emanating from Nine Nether's body, and that pressure made his soul tremble, for it came from her bloodline. It was the sensation of an upper being suppressing a lower one. In the spirit beast world, divine beasts were the pinnacle of existence. If I were you, I'd run far away right now. Nine Nether's beautiful eyes glanced indifferently at the ancient sky dragon eagle. Her tone was casual, as if she were a queen looking down at her insignificant subjects. The ancient sky dragon eagle stared at Nine Nether, his eyes flickering with red and viciousness. Retreating without a fight was something he could never accept. Although the other side had successfully evolved, their strength was only comparable to his own. If a battle broke out, he wasn't sure the opponent would gain much of an advantage. After all, in his eyes, the Nine Nether before him was still too inexperienced, while he himself had survived countless life and death battles. I've seen storms in these years that you, a little girl, could never compare to. You want to scare me with just a word? I'm afraid you're still far from having that qualification. The ancient sky dragon eagle slowly spoke, its eyes filled with an overwhelming ferocity. If you truly want to make a move today, I don't think the outcome will be as you imagine. As the chilling voice of the ancient sky dragon eagle rang out, purple light surged, and a massive shadow appeared behind it. It was none other than the ancient sky dragon eagle's true form. A terrifying wave of spiritual power swept across the sky and earth, shaking everything to its core. Heavenly Dragon Roar. The monstrous dragon mouth of the ancient sky dragon eagle suddenly opened wide, causing the entire world to darken. Its giant mouth became like a wind tunnel, and terrifying spiritual power, akin to an ocean, surged outward before suddenly turning into a deafening dragon roar. As the roar echoed, it became a tangible force, with rolling sound waves transforming into a heavenly dragon that roared towards the sky. This dragon was mighty, its form so large that it even exceeded the ancient sky dragon eagle's true body. A terrifying dragon might spread, scattering the divine beast aura emanating from the Nine Nether. This soundwave dragon had the true power of a heavenly dragon. The ancient sky dragon eagle dared to challenge the evolved Nine Nether, clearly showing it had genuine strength. And from the very start, it held nothing back, knowing that the Nine Nether was now a divine beast. This was an opponent not to be underestimated. The entire world trembled under the force of that dragon's roar. The heavenly dragon gathered its energy, its massive form flicking its tail and tearing through the void as it rushed straight toward the Nine Nether. The spectacle was so overwhelming that it seemed as though the heavens themselves were being crushed beneath its might. The nine Nether gazed coldly at the sonic wave heavenly dragon as it shattered the void. Her graceful form moved, appearing atop the massive head of the nine Nether soul sparrow. With a light stamp of her jade-like foot, a clear, melodious cry suddenly echoed across the world. The nine Nether soul sparrow opened its beak, unleashing a vast purple flame sea that spread like a tidal wave across the sky. The nine Nether's soft lips sucked in the purple flame sea, then exhaled gently, releasing a strand of flame that shimmered with a faint purple-golden hue. The flame shot forward like a fiery line. That purple-golden fire line ripped through the void, causing the very fabric of space to shatter. A terrifying heat made the world boil, with spiritual energy even starting to bubble. Undying flame. A soft voice rang out from the nine Nether's lips, crystal clear. The long, piercing cry grew louder as the purple-golden fire line morphed into a small, yet intricate fire sparrow, no more than 10 feet in size. The fire sparrow flapped its wings, streaking across the sky. Under the watchful eyes of countless onlookers, it collided head-on with the massive heavenly dragon, whose form was several thousand feet long. Before the giant dragon, the tiny purple-golden fire sparrow seemed insignificant, almost like an ant. Yet, the clash of these two disproportionate forces left everyone dumbfounded. In an instant, the fire sparrow tore through the heavenly dragon's defenses with a force akin to a crushing tide, piercing through its massive body. Purple-golden flames spread out from within the heavenly dragon's form. The terrifying fire quickly reduced the enormous beast, which had been filled with the might of a heavenly dragon, to nothing but ash. A sharp, piercing screech erupted from the mouth of the ancient sky dragon eagle, and an enraged roar filled the sky. Undying flame? It was said that the undying flame was the unique fire of the ancient immortal phoenix. Those who possessed this flame were invincible and immortal, a divine treasure sought by countless strong warriors. However, the flame was extremely domineering. If someone wasn't compatible with it, even the supreme sea might be burned into nothingness by the slightest touch. This undying flame could only be cultivated by divine beasts with the purest immortal phoenix bloodline. Jiuyu's delicate face remained calm as her slender jade-like fingers extended, pointing into the air. Immediately, 10 streaks of purple-gold flame shot out, crossing each other like fire serpents howling, carrying a wave of energy that even made the numerous academy heads tremble in fear. The flames surged toward the ancient sky dragon eagle. The ancient sky dragon eagle reacted immediately, retreating violently. At the same time, its massive wings flapped, and countless purple dragon scales shot out, quickly forming giant dragon scale shields in front of it. Hiss! Hiss! The fire serpents shot forward with unstoppable force, shattering the dragon scale shields with ease, before crashing fiercely into the ancient sky dragon eagle's gigantic body. Boom! The massive body of the ancient sky dragon eagle erupted in a spray of blood and flesh. As the blood and pieces of flesh fell, they were instantly consumed by flames, turning into nothingness. The agonizing roar of the dragon echoed through the air. Amid the painful roar, a trace of terror finally emerged in its voice. Jiuyu before it was only at the 4th grade supreme level, but the sheer combat strength displayed made even the ancient sky dragon eagle's heart race in fear. The ancient sky dragon eagle's eyes flashed urgently, and with a bite of its teeth, it decided to control Ji Xian's body and concede defeat. It was clever, knowing that this was the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. As long as it conceded, neither Jiuyu nor Mu Chun would dare to harm them. However, just as it was about to act, Mu Chun, who had been watching the battle closely, felt a cold glint in his eyes. Ji Xian's talent was exceptional, his schemes deep, and with the secret aid of the ancient sky dragon eagle, he would undoubtedly achieve great things in the future. If this opportunity was let go, it could pose a serious threat down the line. Mu Chun was not the type to let a tiger return to the mountain. Suddenly, Mu Chun raised his head. His figure moved, appearing directly on the massive body of the 9 Nether soul sparrow. He sat down, eyes closed. Meanwhile, within his chi sea, the mysterious black page trembled silently. Jiuyu, I need to borrow your power once more. A low command echoed in Mu Chen's heart. In an instant, a torrent of unending power surged forth. The mysterious black page, the page of immortality, trembled even more violently. Purple light patterns quietly spread across its pitch-black surface, culminating in a sudden burst of radiant purple light. Mu Chen's tightly closed eyes snapped open. He quickly formed a peculiar hand seal, resembling a lotus flower. The purple light exploded across the sky, and in the next moment, everyone saw a deep purple, extremely beautiful and enchanting mandala flower slowly materialize in the space between heaven and earth. Immortal seal. Mu Chen's gaze turned cold as his finger pointed into the air. The massive purple mandala flower quivered, vanishing into thin air. When it reappeared, it was directly beneath the ancient sky dragon eagle's enormous body. At that moment, the ancient sky dragon eagle's expression changed drastically.